Hey nerds, time for round 2. Yes, I've done this video once already, but the microphone on the camera was on and not my precious little snowball microphone. So the sound was shit. And don't worry, I didn't stick my finger in an electrical socket. This is just what happens when you have thick curly hair and you shave the sides and the back. Normally I would style it all sexy like. But I didn't do my hair this morning because I'm on holidays and fuck you, I don't have to. Also, Merry Christmas! Pokemon Christmas! Today, we're going to talk about Extasia. Extasia. I think that's how it's pronounced. That's a difficult word. Read that. Read that and you tell me what you think you can pronounce that. It's by Claire Legrand. Or Legrand. Legrand? I'm doing it again. Anyway. This is The Handmaiden's Tale meets The Craft. This is beautiful, atmospheric. I love this book. I wish I did this for our as well. I wish I submitted this for our October spooky book club because this was way better than what we did. But that's another story. It's time for this one, and this was awesome. I've got a set of notes. I'm just going to quickly bloop those notes. So, in my notes I've got creepy, descriptive. It has this over-the-top religious fervor as well as this beautiful brutality to the pagan magic or the pagan-esque magic. Set in a post-apocalyptic age of destruction inside a little village, their world is similar to that of the Pilgrims or perhaps the Amish, where women are second, men are first, and God is all. This all changed when our protagonist Amity is invited into the woods and her interactions with real, true power start a chain of events that tear down everything she thinks she knows. Her people, her family, her religion, it's all thrown into turmoil at the revelation that she has access to this power, Extasia. Now, this magic, Extasia, is not necessarily pagan, but it has a very old school witchcraft feel to it. It's linguistic base. It's not just there's one word for fire, incendio. There is a whole grouping of words that may change depending on what one truly feels about fire. So if someone feels fire is destructive, their word may be different to another witch that uses a different type of word because they believe fire brings warmth and light. So has a very fluid and ever-changing individuality to it. Really, really cool. I'll get back into more of that in a minute. The premise of the story is that Amity, her little town is besieged by the witches that use this power in the name of the devil. To be frank, they actually do it in the name of the devil, and they murder men of her home in retributions for their actions, or in some cases their inaction. So they brutally fuck up and murder these men, which are bad men. But then they do it to other men who many would claim were good, gentle, honest people. But their lack of conviction or their lack of involvement when coming to the aid of women in their little village, in their society, grants them a guilty verdict, right? They're doing as they have been raised to do, and they get fucked up for it. So it's pretty nuts. But Amity makes it her mission to use this power to save her little world, her little village, until she begins to understand the rage and betrayal and abuse that she and all the other women actually suffer to the extreme zealot nature of the religion that they were all raised in. In my notes, I've got this book is dark and beautiful and brutal and gruesome. Amity's constant conflict within herself with all that happens is just so good, and that is true. It's wonderful. So, bug. So, I'm thinking where I should begin. I'll begin with Amity. Herself. So, Amity is raised in this exceptionally pious, zealot-like environment where, men and women both have their place, but the place of women is always that of a servant to man, and then a servant to God. And men are only servant to God and themselves. We see a fair amount of that actually in our world, so it's not a completely foreign concept to grasp. And it isn't until Amity is actually exposed to this magic, this source of power, Extasia, where she is then exposed to other women that have knowledge of what is outside their world, outside her little village. They have traveled, they have an understanding. Some of them know how to read and write. Others have skills in crafts and hunting, in things that are only men's skills. And it's this exposure to this idea that not necessarily her faith is wrong, but the structure of it in and of itself is exceptionally biased, that she sees that it's biased. And throughout the whole book, it doesn't matter how much power she gains and how hard she fights for her people or against her people, and she sees things with a new light. She sees the type of judgment and the type of indifference that's given to her and other women, that it fucks with her, because she's grown up her whole life she is in this book called a saint. There are always 4 saints. There are always 4 young women within the village at any one time, and she earns her sainthood. And basically, saints are there to serve as a kind of like a public figure, as a holy public figure. They are to take on the weight and the sins of everyone in their village. And the levels at which that goes to can be pretty extreme. So, and there's a part in the book where she talks, look that way, that's the next book. There's a part in the book where she remembers being younger and she couldn't wait. She prayed to God that he would speak to the elders and make her a saint, make her holy, make her blessed. She wanted to be put in this position so therefore she could take on the sins of her people. And then it wasn't until she was in this position, and then she was exposed to this alternative life, this alternative form of thinking, that she went, I've wanted this my whole life. Now, why is it wrong? Why do I now see it in this light? And it feels tainted to her, because the thing that she wanted most has been spoiled by these women, these witches. But now she has a true grasp of what actual freedom looks like, actual expression looks like. So it's that Amity and her struggles throughout this are so good. It's this constant flicker between how one is raised and what one consciously knows is morally right and wrong. Lies and truth can both be used for good and evil. You can, telling a kid Santa exists isn't, evil, but lies are generally considered bad. And it's like, are they though? People are My tongue is all twisted. People are manipulated by the truth constantly. So it's this whole thing. It's this whole coming of age act of getting to a point where they look at the superstitions and religions and traditions of their life that they've been told is correct, and wanting a greater understanding of why. Why is it correct when it looks and feels wrong? You know? So, really cool. Really, really good. I want to talk about the magic, because the magic is... I spoke a bit about it before. So, there are times where Amity is in like this, let's say Witchwood. Let's say she's in an alternative form of the woodlands around her home. We call it the Witch. I'll call it the Witchwood. And Shoebug. It has this fantastical fairy tale like aspect to it. And I don't mean as in like fae magic or Sarah J. Maas fairy porn sort of thing. I actually mean a genuine sort of Brothers Grimm eerie fairy tale sort of aspect to it, where there's some witches that call wolves and ravens and owls from this witchwood into the regular place, into the regular world around them, but when they rock up, they're partly rotted and their eyes are all glazed over white, and some of them have a third eye in the center, and so it's cool. It's dark and creepy, and the magic is linguistic based, and it's also based on what one feels. And there are a few moments in the book where you see it used for a gentle, genuine purpose, but then you see it from other aspects, especially when these women, these witches, are brutally murdering men, and how they end up, and the conditions that they leave them in. It is dark. Amity at one point is trying to summon a book. She's trying to summon a book that she's seen one of the other witches use, and she gets there. She's able to eventually summon it, and she uses her sister's help, because as she summons it, it's stuck in her back, and her sister actually has to pull it and reef it out of her, and it's weird and gruesome, and it's like she birthed the book. That's what they say in the book later on, when she's talking to other witches. She's like, I summoned it. She's like, like my sister pulled it out of my skin, and they were all like, whoa, hold on, you didn't just into the palm of your hand, you didn't summon it, you birthed it, you like recreated it from your mind. And they were more twisted up about that, because they're like, she didn't just take it, she reabsorbed it from wherever it was when it like disappeared, and then it was like exhumed from her body. And Claire Legrand knows how to write, okay? She knows how to write some scenery. She knows how to show it to you. And actually, you know what? That's what I'll get onto. I want to get onto the actual writing of the book. So, where was I? The writing. Okay, so the only word I can really use to describe the style of writing through this whole book is atmospheric. Atmospheric, atmospheric, atmospheric. Throughout this book, there's quite a bit happening, and some writers write in blocks with their chapters. This is not the case. What I mean by that is this is what's happening in the chapter, and this particular chapter is either informative, or it's suspenseful, or it's graphic and gruesome, or it's it's about the love interest or whatever else. Claire Legrand's writing is not like that. I, at several points while reading this, had trouble remembering which part came from which chapter as I was reading through, because of the flow. It just moved from one scene into the next, into the next. Every form of atmosphere, when she is possibly discovered, Amity is possibly discovered to have taught herself reading, or at least a small form of reading and letters. There's this suspense of, oh fuck, is she going to get caught? Like, is she going to be burned as a witch, as a heretic? There's this really severe suspense due to the very confined, controlling, zealot nature of her little world. And so, even though writing and learning to read is not all that bad, in the context, in the setting, it has a very extreme penalty. And so when she's thinking about it and she's worrying about it, and then we move away from that because as it looks like she may be discovered, the village finds another young man has been murdered. Like, he has been mangled and pulled apart by some kind of unnatural force, which is the witches. And it just describes this absolute carnage and mess of a body. At one point, a young boy is actually like pulled in half by something, and the whole town is just, what the fuck? Like, everyone starts getting in a panic. So then it's this thing of like, it stops being about her small minute problem, and then there is this moment of real gore and like just random act of violence, which then it becomes an atmosphere of terror and confusion for all the village people. And then all the elders are trying to just get everyone to calm the fuck down and chill out and try and let them figure out what's going on, even though they have no clue. But also, like most people in community situations or in herd mentality situations, if something's not done within a very short time frame, the people wig out and go, "You're not doing enough," which happens in real life too with cops, unfortunately. So there's just this flow of, oh shit, like, is this what's going to happen now? We're in this moment of like panic and suspense because our main character is going to be caught doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and then it turns into a moment of this random gore and violence, and then it's this like air of panic and terror because nobody knows what's happening. Even Amity at this point, she can't figure out why they would do this, considering I think at this stage she may have tried to strike a bargain with them and be like, stop killing people. Like, I will find you your answer if you stop killing people, because they're my people. And so there's all this confusion, and it's like, why? And then there's this air of panic, and then suddenly everything settles as the elders take over, and they eventually get everyone to calm the fuck down. But then there's all this suspicion. There's now an atmosphere of suspicion and finger pointing, and a lot of it is pointing towards our main character, Amity, even though she does have access to this power. It wasn't her, but she can't prove it. They can't prove she's a witch, but she can't entirely prove she was innocent either. So there's this finger pointing suspense of like, like, is she gonna get blamed for something she didn't do? And it's like that throughout the whole book. Whole book just transitions from one atmosphere of suspense and a little bit of panic to this like gore, or we see magic and we see like this really intense kind of like beautiful brutality to the magic. Even when she births the book, when she gets her sister to pull it out of her back, and like there's a lot of moments of different forms of intensity, whether it comes with internal conflict, external conflict, like community, interrelationship conflict. So there's all these levels of suspense, but then the way it's written and described just has this real feel of either creepiness or dread or guilt. Like, So well done. Honestly, I love this. So I don't know if you can see it there. Probably not. This is not the best light. I mean, it's been a rainy day. There's a lot of, probably see a spot there as well. There's some on the bottom. I kept eating this. I kept eating this. I kept reading this while I was eating my lunch at work. Because I basically didn't touch this during October. Because October was crazy. And I really wanted to finish it. So I started powering through it in November. And that's what I was doing. I was eating my lunch while reading it. And making an absolute mess on some of these pages. And soup leaked in my lunch bag. I don't think you can see that on this camera. There's too much glare. But soup leaked in my lunch bag. And I actually did a pretty good job at restoring it. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. But I was determined to finish this because I didn't want to stop. Every time I finished a chapter, it didn't feel like the end of a chapter. It felt like the end of a sentence or the end of a paragraph. And the next one was just waiting. Like, it didn't feel choppy. It didn't feel in blocks where we got information. Or this chapter was about the suspense. And this chapter was about whatever. It's like, no. It was just one beautiful flow. There is a little bit of a love interest in this, actually. There is a little bit of emotional and sexual connection and confusion. As I said, there's a lot of what is right, what is wrong in this book. It becomes a very blurred line because when you grow up a certain way, you know things are just naturally wrong. But then you're introduced to new information, you go, well, why is that wrong? You know, so there's a lot of up and downs with Amity and a few other of the characters where they have these relationships and friendships that feel like they should go into another level, or they are going into another level, but then there's conflict with them. Or the ones that feel like they should go to another level, they don't reach that level, and not because of any right or wrong conflict, but just simply because the characters themselves are evolving throughout the book, so their relationship is changing and therefore not coexisting anymore, I suppose is the best way to say it. Not reaching that point of a friendship becoming a relationship. The end. Now, the last time I recorded this, when the microphones were swapped, I said I didn't know how to describe the ending without spoiling the ending, and I still don't. The end, I had an image in my mind of what the end was going to look like. I was wrong on about 100 different levels. The ending was by no means bad. The ending was actually very good. I just didn't see it going that way, and I don't know whether it's because I didn't see it going in that particular direction that I was a little bit disappointed, or if it didn't meet my expectations. But either way, I'm actually satisfied and happy with the way this book ended. I can't say it was a shit ending. I can't say it was a grand, magnificent ending to the book, but it was a good ending. I will say that. It's not what you expect. The book takes a bit of a turn about here. About 3/4 of the way through, I'd say. Maybe 4/5. The book takes a bit of a turn, and I was like, oh no, like, oh, is it going to be one of those kinds of endings? And then it kind of shifts and takes a turn back, which makes it really weird. So it really threw me off. It did. It really threw me off, because I was like, I reached that first twist and I went, oh, yuck, no. Like, is it going to be one of those kind of books? Like, no. And then it twisted back into the story that it was, and I was so kind of put off and thrown by that original twist that when we actually reached the ending, I was like, oh, good. But, it, like, what? I don't know. That's what I felt like. I was glad we got to the ending we got to, because I honestly thought it was going to go in a totally different direction and just fuck it up right at the end. That was the main thing. I was satisfied because we got the ending that fit the book, but the twist made me panic so hard that it was going to be a shit ending, and then it twists back at the end. I was like, so I'm a bit weird about the ending because it really spun me, because I honestly thought it was going to be shit, but it wasn't. But I don't know if that makes it a good ending, simply because I was tricked into thinking it was going to be a shit ending. Does that make sense? Probably not. Time for the recommendation part of the video. So I don't do the star system. I think it sucks. If you give something a 3 out of 5, people think it's average, they won't read it. If you give it a 4 out of 5, they're expecting a really top tier, next to perfect book, and not a lot lives up to that. So fuck the star system. We're going with the recommendation system. This is The Handmaid's Tale meets The Craft. If you like either of those two stories, you will love this. If you like dark, creepy, atmospheric, if you like a lot of that kind of pagan-y, witchy, ritualistic, folksy magic, then you're gonna like this. If you like the idea of young women breaking through socialistic norms and things like that, then you're gonna definitely fucking love this. I'll tell you that right now. If you really enjoy books that have exceptional pacing and writing, if you love gory description, if you're a fan, I wouldn't say this is a horror, not by any means, but by the same token, there is a great amount of gore and social and physical and emotional, like, brutality and abuse, and there's so much religious fervor. If you love that kind of over the top, rule breaking and society breaking kind of situations, especially from, the system, like the breaking of the religious systems, all those kinds of things, get this book. Get Extasia, because it is awesome. Claire Legrand also wrote another book. It's on the back here, The Saw Kill Girls. I wonder if you can see that. Right there. I'm going to pick it up. It's not a sequel to this. I think it's another standalone, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going to get more of Claire Legrand's books, and hopefully they're written the same. Hopefully they're written in that style where one chapter just bleeds into the next. It doesn't feel like a separation of through pages. Great book. Honestly, I cannot hype enough how much I loved the magic, or more the feel of it, the way it's written. I love the feel of the ritualism of the magic. It is so good. If you love all that kind of shit, please go get this book. And buy a physical copy, for fuck's sake, all you people with audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks, but pick up the real book. It's so much better. It's so much better to read this book. That's it. Alright, on to the next one.